Hey y'all, welcome to my live stream podcast. Hopefully I'll stay in focus. I don't know why I'm going out of focus so much right now, but hopefully that will resolve itself. So today, just figured we'd go over a bunch of stuff that's been happening in Canada this week. There's obviously a bunch of stuff happening all the time, and in Canada and around the world, but nothing really jumped out at me and said, hey, I got to talk about this one topic tonight. So the latest, and I did a video on this, was Jagmeet's lies about bots. So if you are watching this, if you can see this, if you can see my chat, please sign in. Let me know that you're out there. I seem to have trouble almost every week. So I'm hoping that this was the first week I got everything off without a hitch, but we'll see. So let me know if you're out there. Let me know if you're where you're from, and if you have any questions, if you want to talk about anything, that would be great. So Jagmeet's lies. I've made a number of videos about Jagmeet's lies. He seems to, we'll see if this could, I don't know why I'm going out of in and out of I'm just going to see if I can actually zoom in a bit, and maybe that will just focus on me instead of my background. There you go. So yeah, I've done a few videos on Jagmeet and all of his lies, all the times that he has just made stuff up about Pierre Poilievre. He also, yeah, I don't know. Geez, I'm just going out of focus here. I don't know why. Sorry about that. But let's see. Yeah, what's going on? Autofocus isn't working on my camera for some reason. Don't know why. Yeah, so I've done quite a few videos on Jagmeet's lies. He lies all the time, especially about Pierre Poilievre, because it's almost like he believes Pierre Poilievre is the current prime minister. He knows that he's going to be the next prime minister, and he, for whatever reason, he thinks that he is going to be, that he has a chance, or Jagmeet thinks that he has a chance to become a prime minister, but there's, in my estimate, absolutely no chance of that. So what is his current lies? His current lies are about the bots, the bot farms. Now, we know that Justin has used bots and, AI in the past, and there's been rumors that Pierre Poilievre has used AI in the past. AI is not necessarily a terrible thing if it's used correctly, if it's not used to disseminate lies. But the current issue is that Jagmeet is saying, or he's not coming out and saying it directly, but he's insinuating that Pierre Poilievre has used bots to inflate his popularity and the momentum that the Conservative Party has throughout Canada, which is crazy, because there's momentum in Canada for Pierre Poilievre because Pierre Poilievre is actually the best choice to be prime minister. It's got nothing to do with any fake bots or anything like that. So he points to this rally that Pierre did in Kirkland Lake, Ontario, and how afterwards there were all of these comments, Pierre Poilievre comments about how, everything went really, really well. And okay, there are lots of comments about that. Found out later that many of these comments were probably fake. They're very similar to each other, and they originated from accounts that were registered in Russia and in France and in other places. So my question is, why would Pierre do that? He doesn't need it, but Jagmeet does, and so does Justin Trudeau. He needs that. He needs to create a scandal. And the scandal that he's chosen is this bot scandal. And one of the reasons I think he did that is because it's hard to drill down and find out who paid these bot farms to do this. It's just that simple. He thinks that he is insulated from detection, essentially. Now, this is my belief, okay? This is all based on belief, speculation. I'm not saying that I can't make any absolute statement that it's true, because it is my speculation. So, he benefits from this if he can create a scandal. And he's done this before. He's lied about the Conservatives wanting to dump toxic waste and raw sewage and whatnot into and spoil our waterways. He's lied about what he's done to prevent that. He lies about almost everything. Now, the Liberals, on the other hand, they lie constantly, and they keep on bringing up this BS. Thanks, Brad, for signing in. Glad to know I'm not just talking to myself out there. So the Liberals keep on lying about Pierre and this Diagolon group, whatever that is. Now, I know a little bit about that. It's some sort of a podcast that this ex-army dude has, and he's got a few friends, and he says some pretty off the wall stuff, and he doesn't get along with Pierre. But somebody drew a Diagolon small little message on a trailer, and that happened to be caught by camera when Pierre Poilievre had stopped to visit these protesters, these carbon tax protesters. And so the Liberals keep on jumping on that. They also keep on jumping on the abortion thing, which is not an issue in Canada, but they want to keep bringing it up because they want to keep trying to discredit Pierre Poilievre and trying to turn people against him. And that's what I think all this bot stuff is about. I don't think it has anything to do with Pierre Poilievre. I think that it has everything to do with Jagmeet Singh, because this is, quite frankly, right up his alley. This is from a guy who apparently, and I don't know this for a fact, so it is speculation as well. This is from a guy who can't even return to India or can't travel to India because he's on some sort of a terrorist watch list there, and he's got arrest warrants out. Now, again, this is what I've heard. I don't have any firsthand information about this, but if you can, I just don't trust the guy. So that's about the bots. That's been happening. I did a video on this. I think it's kind of our version of the Russian collusion scandal that they had in the U.S. a couple of years ago. That was proved to be completely false. That was fabricated totally by the people who were making the accusations. Found out later that Hillary Clinton had actually orchestrated all of that. Why she wasn't charged afterwards, I don't know. But apparently, unlike the Democrats, Trump doesn't go after his political opponents. But now we have the same thing happening in Canada, because I don't think that really there's much that can be done. These bot farms are hard to trace back to who bought the scam in the first place. So there you go. So then we have this terror threat. It's funny that Jagmeet is bringing up these bot farms when we have a more important thing that's going on, and this terror threat. And the Conservatives want to recall a parliamentary committee on public safety to talk about this, to get to the bottom of it. And of course, the NDP and the Liberals, I haven't heard an update on this. Maybe they've agreed to recall the committee. I should go on Parle View and see if a committee has been held or will be held. But I've been kind of busy with the renovations of the house here. But instead of talking about that, and they want to shut down all committees in the summer. They don't want to talk about anything. So this terror threat, this guy who did, he actually was involved in a mutilation video, torture mutilation video, while he was in, I believe it was it Syria? I'm not quite sure where he was, but he did this. He participated in an ISIS video where he actually cut the hands and feet off of somebody, allegedly. I didn't see the video, and nor do I want to. And that was prior to him even coming to Canada, and prior to him becoming a Canadian citizen. So, Immigration and Passport and Immigration Canada has really dropped the ball on that. There is no excuse for them not being able to properly vet somebody, in my opinion. Now, the RCMP was able to find out this information, and I know this is going to get a little bit of a pushback, but people from certain areas of the world should be vetted a little more closely. Where you have people who are coming from areas where there's a lot of terrorism and possibly where there's not a lot of really good records being held or kept, then we got to look into them a little closer. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people probably disagree with that. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, or in the chat. But yeah, you can't just let people in willy-nilly. So I don't see why that wasn't done. But you know, I'm just a guy with a suspicious mind because I used to be a police officer. So we have that threat, and we have the Liberals and the NDP constantly trying to shut down committee, like we saw last week with the disgusting disrespectful treatment of witnesses at the committee for what is it? I had the name, but it was basically it's a women's committee, a committee for women's issues, and they were dealing with violence towards women, violence in domestic situations. So intimate partner violence is what they call it. Now, there is intimate partner violence that actually goes both ways. However, the most violent of that goes from male to female, and that's a genetic thing, obviously, because there's just, and that's something that we need to focus on a little bit more. So they shouldn't have shut this down. It was totally disrespectful. And we see this in other aspects of what's going on in the world right now. We even see it in the Olympics, for crying out loud. Now, it's not intimate partner violence, but it is violence towards women. And I'm not a big fight fan. I've been in so many fights, in my career that I've actually got quite a bit of arthritis in my hands. But so I don't need to watch it. It's people beating up on each other. I mean, if you're into that, you're into that, whatever. But this whole idea of allowing men in the Olympics to fight women, that's just stupid. And it's violence towards women, essentially. I mean, well, it is. It's you've got all these you got these two biological men who are fighting in the Olympics. They've been banned from boxing in the women in the International Boxing Association, and the Olympics allow them. It's just this woke crap gone crazy. So, and then we have our own committees disrespecting women by shutting down these committees, not allowing them to speak when they were flown in. One was flown in from California. So I think that that's a trend. And I think that when you have that happening, I think the chances of the Public Safety Committee being recalled, unless it already has, unless I'm missing out on something with with all the terror stuff that's going on, I think that it's very unlikely that the Liberals and the NDP will support recalling that committee, which is insane, since obviously it's an issue. And then after that, what do we have after that? We have people, good evening, Andromedia. I think that's probably a handle, not a name, but let me know. Is that a handle? Is that a name? So, so we have this terror threat. Then we have people dancing around with guns. There's some question of whether or not there was illegal activity with that happening. It was definitely, in my opinion, unsafe and not, and it shouldn't be encouraged. Absolutely shouldn't be encouraged. I do believe that it was criminal activity. I do believe that some of those guns were pointed at people, which is an offense in Canada. You cannot point a firearm at anybody for any reason. I'm not going to go into any of the exceptions, such as self-defense, because self-defense really is, I could go on forever about self-defense and what I feel and how people are treated when they legitimately defend themselves in Canada. And I can tell you stories that you wouldn't believe, but it's not really appropriate for me to talk about personal experiences or experiences what I had when I was on the job. So, it's that dancing with guns. Surprisingly enough, some of those people in that video apparently were associated to that guy who was murdered last year in Surrey. And I had his name. I put it in the video that I put up just a few days ago. The name actually just escapes me right now, his actual name. But he was allegedly associated to a terrorist organization in India, or at least an organization that the Indian government considers to be a terrorist organization. Why he wasn't extradited to stand trial, I don't know. But then again, they haven't extradited Jagmeet Singh to stand trial and to answer to his warrant. So that could explain that as well. I don't know. Maybe they think Canada has this thing where if the punishment is too severe in a country, they won't extradite you, which I don't think is right. I mean, as long as they get a fair trial, and I don't know if they will get a fair trial in India. If you've committed a crime in a country, and and it's also a crime in Canada, and you will get a fair trial, extradite them. I don't care if you're a citizen or not. If you've committed a crime in another country and there's enough evidence to support that, extradite and let them face the criminal justice system in the country which they committed the crime. So, hey, should Jagmeet Singh be extradited? I think he should be. So these fools were dancing around with guns. They pointed guns at people. One guy had his finger on the trigger, which is something that I stress in my classes all the time. And I do teach the Canadian Firearm Safety class, so I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. Matter of fact, if you're ever on the island, look me up. BC Firearms Training.ca. So you can go there. So that happened, and I think that it was. I haven't heard back. I'm going to go to the RCMP news website to see if there's been an update, but I haven't heard anything, so I don't know if anybody's been charged. I know that some firearms have been seized. Some of those firearms were on the prohibited list. The one where the one where the guy with his hand on the with his finger on the trigger, and there was a pinned magazine in it. That is now a prohibited firearm. I didn't get a super close look at it to see if it was an AK-47, which has been prohibited for decades, or whether it was a VZ-58 without a buttstock. So, but the VZ-58 has recently, during the in 2020, when they did that major ban, that was listed as one of those firearms. So yeah, there was okay, so Andromeda up in northern Alberta. Thanks for looking us up. So yeah, that is also currently a prohibited firearm. Now, people are allowed to keep their VZ-58s until the government decides that they're actually going to show up at your door and confiscate them. And it is not a buyback program. It is a confiscation. Yes, Andromeda, it did look like an AK-47. However, the VZ-58 does look like an AK-47 in certain, the profile of it. You can tell the difference mainly because of a switch on the side of the AK-47 that switches it from semi-auto to full auto. And I couldn't see a switch on that one, so I'm not sure if it was. Also, with certain stock configurations, you can make a, I've got a couple of these. Geez, I can't think right now. The other one that everybody's got because they're so cheap, you can actually make some of the older ones, SKSs. You can make SKSs look a little bit like, it wasn't that one was not an SKS, but from a distance, you can make them look with certain stock configurations similar to an AK-47. I believe that one, from what I saw, looked like a VZ-58 without a buttstock. So it was modified probably to the point where it was a prohibited by the fact that it was too short. But I'd have to take a look at it, measure it out. Anyway, I believe that one was a VZ-58. So that was in the news today. Then we have the markets. Now the markets have rebounded a little bit, but there is a lot of talk out there that because markets don't go in a straight line ever. They don't go straight up. They don't go straight down. Whether it's on an angle, whatever. They always bounce around, and there is a lot of volatility index, which is also known as the fear index, happening right now. And the markets have not regained all of their strength. So is this an indication that things are going to crash? I think that whenever we have these far left extremist governments that we've had in both Canada and the United States in the last few years, that we're always at we're always in danger of that, especially since it takes a while for economies to catch up. And when you look historically at markets, you can't always tell what's going to happen day to day. A lot of people inside the markets that can tell, and people who are affecting the markets can tell. That's why Nancy Pelosi and all those members of Congress are making tens of millions of dollars every year, and why Justin Trudeau has made $10 million, and in the span of 10 years, banked $10 million, or in the span of 8 years, whatever, because they get insider information and they're allowed to trade on it, which they shouldn't be. But for the most part, just a casual observer of the markets, we can't always tell exactly where they're going to go, but we can see major trends over time. I do have some market strategy for you. If I ever decide to trade again, watch what I'm doing and then do the exact opposite. Because I used to trade commodities, and the only time I ever made any money trading commodities is when there was a mistake made. Yeah, I'm no good at that kind of stuff. I think it's a universe telling me just not to do it, and I'm not one of those people who actually subscribe to that kind of stuff. So yeah, the market trend, will that continue to kind of go up, down, be volatile? The volatile index is really what's happening right now. So it's going to bounce around. Volatility means it's going to go, one way or the other very quickly. And if there is an overall downward trend, that could potentially signal that there's going to be a recession or even a depression, like the Great Depression. And a lot of people are still looking at that. Even I saw a market report today that there are a lot of people still considering it to be very, very volatile. And when it's volatile, people start to ditch. So, and we've seen this. We've seen Warren Buffett apparently ditch a whole bunch of his Apple stock, and that caused quite a bit of the negative forces onto the market. So I think we might be in for a long period of volatility in the markets, and or at least a significant amount of volatility, whether it's up or down. People who are shorting the market right now might be quite happy that it's on a generally downward trend. Bitcoin even had a bit of a problem, and I'm not a big Bitcoin fan. I don't really know anything. Monetary pressures are, and this fiat currency is very difficult to really grasp your head around, because it's not really it's really not a positive thing. It's all based on debt. It's a debt-based currency. So, and I'm a mathematical and analytical thinker, but just the whole concept of money is really difficult to really grasp your head around, because it's not anything that's really totally physical. Really, it's more of debt financing, and it used to be how you it used to be based off of the gold standard. I'm not sure that was a good thing or a bad thing, but at least it was something solid, something that we could point at. Okay, everybody wants gold, well, the price of gold goes up. Nobody wants gold, then the price of gold goes down. And if your currency is tied to it, then it responds accordingly. Now it's all debt. So it's hard for me, and I'm a fairly logical thinker. It's hard for me to wrap my head around, primarily because I haven't really spent the time studying it. I know that I can't affect it, and my purchasing power gets weaker, and I don't have enough money to get into these solid types of currency like gold and silver. I just, living off of a pension. It's not like YouTube pays me enough to do any sort of trading or anything like that. All right, so getting back to this this terror threat, or what's happening around the world, I think. Okay, so I do have something else on the list. The Liberal NDP merger, that was more of a last week thing, and it's kind of been I think discarded as far as will it happen, won't it happen? I don't think it will, but I think that if we're not looking at things closely, or not keeping a close eye on things, they could try something really underhanded and dastardly as far as keeping the Conservatives out of power. But they would have to close the margin, the difference in the polls considerably, because the Conservatives are going to win a majority if there was an election held right now. If they can close that distance and then they form a coalition government, unfortunately, they can form a government through coalition. I don't think that should be allowed, personally. I think that if you're going to merge parties, it should be done well in advance of an election, like 3 years in advance of an election for it to count. That's just my opinion. I don't think what happened in France should be allowed, where parties can form coalitions even after the election. That's just doesn't make sense to me. But hey, that's the system that we live in. So I don't think that, so I'm going to cross that one off the list. I don't think it's really worth talking about at the moment, but it's something that we do need to keep our eye on. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why I keep on wearing a baseball hat in my videos lately, it's because I seriously need a haircut. I'm hoping to get that done this week. So, jumping back to this terror threat, but more on the lines of what's happening around the world. As you can see in England, there's been a lot of disruption and a lot of just things that are completely out of hand. And it was in response to this incident that happened at this dance party in Southport in England. And what I think there is that there's a lot of the mainstream and the politicians seem to want to focus on only one side of that issue. Yes, if they're, I don't know, I'm going to say that there's a lot of concerned citizens who are protesting, but there's also a lot of people who are not necessarily concerned citizens, are using this as a pretext to be violent and to come down on certain ethnic communities. But for the most part, I think it's frustration. And I would think that a large portion of those people are there out of frustration, out of uncontrolled, because of the uncontrolled, unvetted immigration and the violence that has accompanied that. And the politicians aren't focusing, they don't seem to want to focus on that type of activity, that violence, because the amount of stabbings that are happening in the UK, because the UK took guns away. Oh, why, take guns away. Why isn't the country safer? Well, that's because it's not the gun that kills somebody, it's the person behind the gun. The stabbing at the dance party, well, it was a stabbing, still multiple homicide. There's stabbings all over the UK all the time. There's clubbings, people clubbing each other. There's, people stoning each other. There's people being curb stomped, like that clip that I had in one of my last videos, where that pub goer goes out and he's probably, he's stupid, right? He's a little bit intoxicated. He goes out and starts challenging these people who are cowards. They won't just face him one-on-one. They gang up on him. But he was stupid. I mean, let's face it. He still didn't deserve to be curb stomped, though. And most of the homicides are people are caused by other there's other tools used in most homicides. In Canada, for example, less than 1/3 of the homicides involve the use of firearms. And the majority of those, 75 to 85%, depending on the year, are gang related. So they are not legally in possession of firearms. And the rest of that number, most of those are not legally obtained firearms. So firearms really, taking firearms away from law-abiding citizens is not the solution, especially since over 1/3 of the homicides are, a knife is the tool, or an edged weapon is the tool. And then around 1/3 is other weapons, such as fists, feet, clubs, cars, all sorts of different things. Anything can be a weapon if, used by somebody who knows how to use it as a weapon. So focusing on the wrong thing, that's what they like to do. So now we have all this unrest in England. And if you think that it's not going to come here, I think that people are missing the boat, because it will come here eventually. People are getting upset. Now, I do believe Canadians, in the most part, are very, very tolerant and nonviolent. But there will always be somebody who wants to stir the pot, and someone who wants to get things going. And we see this in the pro-terror protests that we see. And I call it pro-terror because it is pro-terror. It's not pro-Palestine. Pro-terror. They're calling for terrorist acts. They're calling for violence. They're calling for, they're being anti-Semitic, and they're calling for violence towards the Jewish people and the Israeli state. And a lot of times they're being very, they're actually supporting what happened on October the 7th. So they're not, in my opinion, they've crossed the line from legitimate protest, which I'm all for, into non-legitimate protest, meaning that they're violent. They're calling for violence, and they're violent, and we've seen that. So I think that because of that, you're going to see tensions rise in Canada until such time as something positive is done to stop it. What that is, well, I honestly can't say, because we don't have the correct government and power to do anything. I don't think that the Liberals and the NDP coalition will actually do anything, because they don't have instead of saying what a lot of people say, I'm going to use the phrase testicular fortitude, and I think you know what I'm talking about there. You can say intestinal fortitude as well, but they just don't have the gumption to do anything about it. So, because they'll be seen as bigots or whatever, where they're not. You're not a bigot if you're for peace. It's just ridiculous what they're doing. So all of this unrest in England, I think that it's coming here. I mean, you already see people talking. Well, we're upset about a lot of things. The uncontrolled immigration is driving up the prices of everything. The uncontrolled spending is driving up the price of everything. And now we have people defecating on beaches, at gas bars. This is not something that is compatible with our culture of tolerance, our culture of being peaceful, all of these things, and our culture of being clean. It's just not compatible. So people are getting upset. And I think that if the Liberals and the NDP don't turn things around and start actually addressing these issues instead of the made-up issues of these made-up bot farms, then things are going to get a little bit crazy in Canada as well. So I'm going to cross that off the list of things. The next thing I want to talk about isn't directly related to Canada, but it does affect Canada, and that is the possibility of Tim Walz, Kamala Harris presidency, because really, when the U.S. sneezes, Canada catches a cold. I don't know if you've heard that saying before. Very popular back in the 70s when, okay, I'm aging myself here, but the economies were so tightly wound. And we've got this guy, Tim Walz, and just like J.D. Vance, I had to learn about him after he was announced. Although I'd heard J.D. Vance before, I didn't know anything about him. But now Tim Walz is announced as a running mate for Kamala Harris. Tim Walz, he's just getting scandal after scandal. Now he claims he carried weapons during war. He was in the Minnesota National Guard for 24 years or 20, or maybe 30, I don't know, a long time. But he actually never saw combat. And he says he carried weapons during war, which is now proven to be false. The other thing that his biggest scandal are, and I'm going to talk about what is more relevant to Canada in just a bit, but he also bailed out on his unit just prior to being deployed. He was in a position, I don't know if it was an acting position or not, but he was a command sergeant major. Apparently, he wasn't in that position long enough to retain that title once he leaves, but he was in that position. And he retired just prior to his unit being deployed, so he wouldn't have to serve in a combat zone. He also is anti-gun, and some of his statements. So that really, kind of follows what's happening up here. And whenever we have something or they have something going on which can feed into the anti-gun sentiment, it crosses the border all the time. And Minnesota is fairly close to Canada. Obviously, it borders on Canada. Also, he's the guy that started all this calling people weird thing, calling J.D. Vance weird, calling calling Trump weird. And that's crossed the border now. Now, our politicians who are on the left, who have absolutely no imagination or creativity at all, are starting to call Pierre Poilievre weird. Okay, really? They're not the ones doing all. Pierre Poilievre's not the one doing all this woke crap. This Tim Walz, though, he is so weird himself. I don't know. It's hard for me even to say this without laughing. He put tampons in boys' washrooms. Tampons in boys' washrooms. Okay. Yeah, that's just weird. Now, it's not like he's given tampons to military personnel, male military personnel, because there's actually stuffing a wound, like an actual wound. Okay, that's actually been shown to help, but this is not that. This is after he left, and I don't know, how can you even not laugh at a guy like that and not think that he is completely weird? He also signed a bill allowing illegal immigrants to drive. Hey, does that sound like anything that maybe is happening in Canada, where we're giving illegal immigrants more take-home wage than what Canadians normally make before taxes? $224 a day, 365 days a year for every adult that comes in, works out to more than what most people take home after taxes per year. So Do we allow illegal immigrants to drive in Canada? I would imagine we probably do, but I don't know about that. I haven't checked on it. And then he also said that if Trump built a wall, he wanted to know how high it was because he would invest in a ladder factory. And this was obviously prior to the last election. So you know what he thinks about illegal immigration. And hey, how does that translate to Canada? Well, we're allowing just everybody in, driving up our prices of everything, housing prices and whatnot. And today, just before going live, I watched a clip. I watched a video. I'm not going to play it here because I don't want to get a YouTube strike, but it was from Moose on the Loose. And so a shout out to Moose on the Loose. If you don't watch him, I watch it occasionally. Champagne, you know, that guy with that really horrible voice who is always screeching in question period, that guy, Francois Philippe Champagne, I think his name is. I'm not sure. I don't know his name, but he's got like associated to tons of businesses, either in his own name or in his father's name, where he is listed as the sole, not dependent, but the beneficiary, the sole beneficiary, or the administrator. His either his brother or his sister has all these companies as well. Some of them have a lot of association to the Canadian government, and in fact, one, biotech, I think it was biotech. Again, I should have wrote this down, but it is. He is a beneficiary of that company. It's owned by his father, and his ministry is associated to giving him money, or there's a possibility of that. That they were given some Canadian money, some grant money, or some contracts, or something of the sort. And this company is apparently does bio waste management, or something like that. So I watched it just before going live. I didn't make notes on it. I'm sorry about that, but go to Moose on the Loose. I think it's his last upload, unless he's uploaded something since. And you can see everything about this Francois Philippe Champagne, or whatever his name is, Champagne. The squeaky voiced dude who's always yelling in question period. So look up that. It's quite interesting. It's definitely a conflict of interest. Whether it's corruption or not, I don't know, but hey, I mean, it's the Liberals. You can almost say, what's the topic, Patty? Well, the topic today, Patty, is pretty much what's been happening that's affecting Canada this week. Because there's been so much affecting Canada, I couldn't just grasp on to one thing that I thought was really above anything else. So I've talked about the bots, the Jagmeet Singh lies about the bots. I've talked about terror threat. I've talked about markets. Talked about dancing with guns by people who are associated with terrorists. Talked about disrespecting witnesses. I've talked about the possibility of the Liberal NDP merger. And I've talked about how the U.S. Left wing is affecting Canada, and how similar we are. So the Tim Walz scandals that are going on, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. There's no T there. So how do you pronounce his name? Walz? I don't know. Tim Walz. So I've talked about a lot of things, and now I'm just, I guess it sounds like I'm rambling a bit, but there's just so much going on. And personally, I think that the big news is a terror thing, and how the Liberals and the NDP don't want to talk about it. And they don't want to talk about the underlying problems with it, which relates to all of these things. And that is that we have this uncontrolled, unvetted immigration into Canada. So are you going to talk about Diane Daly? You know, I gotta say, I don't think I know too much about what's going on there. Why don't you tell me in the comments what is going on with Diane Daly this week? Is it a this week topic, or is it something else? Yeah. Is it the Arrive scam testimony? I was actually going to go see that testimony or watch it, but I haven't. So I'm going to go to Parleview. It takes a while to watch it on Parleview because you don't exactly know when they're going to get to the good parts. You have to kind of watch it all. And they're usually about 2 to 3 hour meetings. So I was planning on going to watch that. So she's a whistleblower disclosing names for Arrive scam app. Yeah. So I have been planning on watching that. I just haven't gotten around to it. To let you know exactly why I'm sometimes behind the 8 ball, I'm doing a whole bunch of renovations. In fact, this is just 1/4 of one of my rooms. It's a multifunctional room. It's obviously a YouTube studio, but it's also my classroom for when I build a couple more tables and get around to teaching the Canadian Firearms Safety course here. So if you're ever on the island, look me up, bcfirearmstraining.ca, and I can possibly give you a course. But also, it's a theater room. But the rest of the downstairs here, it's kind of all open, and it's a mess now because I'm doing a lot of renovations here. So that's sometimes why I'm a little bit behind in watching some of the things I want to get to, such as the Parleview, not sure I'm pronouncing that right, Parlvu channel. If you ever wonder where some of the content creators get their stuff from, there's quite a few sources, but Parleview is one of them. They stream live and record all of the committee hearings, and then you can also go to obviously CPAC, and I watch Question Period on CPAC all the time. And if you want to know where you can go in, there's also a bunch of resources down if you're interested in U.S. politics. So that's what we've been talking about today. And I pretty much covered what I was thinking about talking about. If there's anything in the next few minutes that you want to discuss or you want to bring up, then throw it in the chat and I'll respond to it. Otherwise, you can put it in the comments below, and especially if you think that there's something that I might be interested in as far as doing a video topic on, let me know. I can't cover everything because just me. I don't have a team of people. I don't have any researchers. And I'm a boomer, so some of this technical stuff, just before this live stream, I finally got it going at the right time, and it worked. But usually, I don't know, it's like every time I upload something or I do an upgrade or an update on a computer system, it seems to mess with me. It's like, they don't like boomers or something like that. So, I'm going to call it here and see you next week. I almost didn't do this live stream this week because I've been having some severe insomnia, and it's like I don't even get to sleep until about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I try to stay awake all day to kind of reset my clock and my internal clock, and it's just not working. So, but I did it. I got up in time and I did it. And if I can sort that insomnia out and everything, I'll be a little bit better prepared for a single topic next week, because I do like to do single topics. That way I can just dive into it and have more concentrated discussion. But anyway, let's I love your dumb phone. I don't know what that means, but anyway, let's talk to y'all next week, and we'll have a great week, have a great day, and I'm glad that you joined me for this. And